Yeah, definitely. It's definitely one of the best heroes at slowing down the Ember Spirit. Of course, players are so good. You can pretty reliably slight dodge out that EMP coming from the Invoker, as I can only imagine it's going to be a Quasflex Invoker, just because the Tornado very naturally takes off that Flame Guard. But still, it is a hero that is kind of seldomly picked versus the Ember Spirit for the exact reason that you are very vulnerable. Once Ember Spirit gets his few key items, it's very easy for him to spend his BKB hounding you pretty much solely. So we'll have to see once this game does break down whether or not there are going to be some lockdown issues. The game will become how can we get really this Ember Spirit off of our backline, because yet again, even though the Mars is great at initiating, he isn't that Tide, that Centaur, that stand in front, just be the one who takes everything. In a lot of situations, he does get taken down, and TOOBASED actually doing a really fine job here. See the Invoker that early. Let's get Lycan. Let's counterpick it. Let's have another hero to run at them. That's really becoming the name of this game. Whether or not you can defend the Invoker from all of these heroes that are just immediately going to run at him.
Hmm. And to be honest, it's a little refreshing to see the Lycan since the 7.30E sort of nerfs to his kit a little bit. A lot of teams have shied away from it to a certain extent, so it is going to be very interesting to see can that Lycan sort of play the same way that it was when it was sort of all the rage over the last month or so in at TI, because inherently he still should play the same way, but some of those changes may make it a little bit more difficult to actually hit that same sort of timing, have that same sort of effect with the wolf bite.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a question that they have to answer, and that's also where we're going to see D2 Hustlers most likely ban out his heroes. You're going to try and take everything you can away from Boris, while at the same time, you look at D2 Hustlers draft, when you pick up the Invoker, you pick up the Ogre Magi, they are looking for something massive to pick. This is going to be Yuma's hero that is going to be Alacritied, it's going to be Bloodlusted, and it is going to be stronger than everything. It is Bloodlust Alacrity versus Wolfbite in this game, and I can only imagine that now they're searching for a hero, probably a melee hero on TOOBASED side to send in with the Wolfbite. Meanwhile, D2 Hustlers are looking for, again, another monster. And I think banning out the Magnus right here, incredibly smart. Not only matches up really well versus the Lycan and Lane, but it's also Yuma Magnus. I think really just the experience, and especially Mr. Jeans playing on them before, he knows what it looks like whenever Yuma gets his hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to let him pick up that. Meanwhile, for the two-base side, I mean, the Tiny's still there. And maybe now's the time to test the water, see if that Lycan Tiny combo still sort of holds up the way that it used to. But D2 Hustlers don't seem to be overly concerned with that just yet. Instead, they do go for that Phantom Lancer ban. So we've only seen that hero picked up, what, once so far in this event, but it was in a circumstance that really allowed that PL to shine. And if you're D2 Hustlers, you're not really in a perfect spot to deal with that Phantom Lancer and his illusions. So better to take them out of the pool. Meanwhile, for two-based, yeah, the TB's got to go as well in terms of those right-click heroes that could have just been buffed up by the Invoker and the Ogre.
Yeah, and really, I'm trying to think of what heroes. Of course, when you're playing versus two-base and it gets to this point, the easiest heroes to ban versus Boris are both his Luna and his Ursa. Those are always the ones that really come to the forefront, but really, those aren't the best Wolfbite targets. So that's where, like you said, I am feeling like they're looking at heroes like the Sven, like the Tiny, those heroes that have so much initial damage that the crits are just going to put them really up to that next level. And then I'm also thinking what they're going to possibly want for Yuma, whether or not we're going to look at a hero like his Faceless Void, per se, where they really need, I think, a little bit more lockdown coming from their main damage dealer. But it's really hard to say because, again, you want someone maybe like the Morphling, but it's already been end out so soon from simply two-base. So what are they going to go for? Especially Luna's out now. So I feel like they were looking for a melee hero, and we'll see now. They're
Oh,
just going to go for the Ursa. Okay.
all right. That's a hero that can hit hard. And the thing about the Ursa that we always mention is the fact that he's not always the most mobile of heroes. He sometimes has difficulties getting in onto those targets and staying within the range he needs to dish out that high damage. The shapeshift could be something to alleviate that concern. If you can wolf bite up the Ursa and just send him in there, then mobility is no longer a problem. Now it's down to D2 Hustlers to just actually basically stun him up to try and keep him away, as Hustlers go for their Yuma pick, the Troll Warlord, getting basically brought back from the dead, ET. We do not see that hero all that often.
Everybody remembers EG
Mhm.
versus IG, game 3, not pretty, but it is definitely going to feel, I think, pretty strong here because, again, you have those outside factors. You're going to be alacritied. You're going to be bloodlusted. It's a hero that's very concise. That was one of the few heroes that really, way back when, whenever the ultimate first got changed, you still get your buildings so quickly. You still get Roshan pretty much out of the blue if you win a team fight randomly. And it is one of the few carries left in the pool that lanes up so well versus the Lycan. So I really like it a lot, if anything, to be a counter pick versus that Lycan in lane. And it's just going to mean that Benjaz is going to be a little bit slower off to the game. And yet again, with the Ursa, simply two-based are taking that fight to the top side of the map, where if they can force their opponents to that Roshan just a little bit too early, then D2 Hustlers could get caught up in a mistake very easily. It's what heroes like the Disruptor and the Ember Spirit do so well. It really punishes your small positioning errors, and I think that's exactly what the game plan is for them. And my problem is, if it does become a farm battle, you're farming versus a very, very powerful late game troll, and I think that's definitely what they're looking at right now.
Yeah, if Yuma is allowed to just sort of sit there and farm, then two-base aren't going to have great means of dealing with that. Ursa does so much damage, especially onto a single target, but if you go up against a Troll Warlord and he's got, as you said, the Bloodlust, the Alacrity, his own ult sort of helping him out, Ursa does not win that fight. So if you're D2 Hustlers, that's going to be the game plan. Try to enable Yuma at every possible opportunity, whereas two-based, well, they might want to try and pick up the tempo a little bit here so that Yuma can never reach that sort of critical mass.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be a big issue. And at the same time, D2 Hustlers, they don't have absolutely everything. That's something that 2Base did do a good job of, seeing that Invoker so early on in the second phase. This game of cat and mouse between really Esk and everyone else on the 2Base side is, I think, where the game is really going to be broken down here. It is a game of defense and attack, where if you lose your Invoker early on, then everything gets shifted over to Yuma, and that's a situation that really no carry is going to be happy with.
With that in mind, we do hop into it. Third series of the day getting started here. Simply two-base and D2 Hustlers both hoping to get at least 1 point out of this matchup so that they don't fall too far behind some of those leaders. As a reminder, for this group stage in general, just before we get to sort of doom and gloom, only one team gets eliminated in this group stage. So overall, the threat that you get actually knocked out entirely is incredibly low. But matchups like this one in particular against teams that kind of appear to be maybe on the same level coming into the event, that is what can determine upper and lower bracket, and you never know. Starting in that upper bracket has certainly helped teams in the past make it further than people may have expected. So, fair bit on the line here. I know that's weird to say on day 3, but, you know, drumming up the hype a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Don't think too much early game action, though. Of course, they're trying to put the feelers there for that mid lane ward. Some Divide pos 5 getting said, because of course Mr. June's in that previous iteration of D2 Hustlers, where Divide, of course, was playing the 4. Oh, Empyrean.
Oh, they got the arrow to
So
connect.
sick.
Okay. That is something. All right. I mean, that stun combo comes into play. We talked about this as well in the draft. Flee on this Mirana. It is the signature hero for this player. So you got to assume plays like that are going to happen. I think maybe two-based were banking on the Ogre going for the Ignite or the Bloodlust at level 1, but if you have that opening, you've got to take it. And they do manage to get first blood on their side.
Yep, and it's a big start for specifically Esk. It's going to be very nice to have what is probably going to be actual regen on this Invoker. So many times when you go for the Quaswex Invoker, they just do this very stat-heavy build, and then they rely on their Quas pretty much solely until they get a little bit more of that golden flux. But now he gets Tangos and he gets a Null Talisman, so he's going to be pretty happy. Even though he's not getting any CS right now, it is
Yeah.
very hard the last hit. Very low damage hero, but he's got one. One on the board.
Just got to get the ball rolling there, and then things will get a little easier, right? Well, okay, maybe not. He's still kind of struggling here, but this is always a thing. Going back to that point, he even... Okay, he tornadoed for one. Why not? But, even at this level, professional players, farming under the tower is still not easy, and also...
That's no good.
Well, that's not easy either. Pingu pushed out of the lane, thought he was sort of just safe to fall back and heal up, but Flea chases after him, sends out the arrow, and he is able to sort of set up a second kill. This time he calls his own number as D2 Hustlers put another one on the board. And, I mean, again, don't want to sort of hammer away at that point too hard, but it's Flea on a Mirana. If you're Pingu, you always have to be aware in this lane of where he is, or in instances like this, the fact that you don't see him on the map.
Yeah, and also very importantly, D2 Hustlers stamped their feet in the ground when it came to this camp control. I think Pingu is probably going to body block the large camp out here. I think he's actually thinking about it right now. He's going to see it spawn. I think only letting it spawn because of how far up the wave actually is, but Flea has given the lane all the way over to Monster. Monster's level 3 and he's level 2. Why? Because he farmed a large camp by himself, and you cannot stress enough what Mirana does for your Dota 2 game. Your forest suddenly doesn't need to be scared of pretty much anything because you are so farmed on this hero, and it just spreads the wealth across the map.
Yeah, Flea is just going to be able to sort of build himself up a little bit, whereas Monster, as you said, gets that basically solo lane. So they're going to be sort of loving life in that lane. Meanwhile, up top, you see Divine Llama and Yuma. They're trying to put a little bit of pressure here onto Benjaz. They slow him up with the Ignite. Yuma came in with those whirling axes, and Benjaz hit up by another Fire Blast. He is going to win the 1v1, though, and now Devi doesn't really have a whole lot of reason to be here. Can he actually get away?
Minus
yeah, that
12.
bug. Oh my god. He can't get out. He was sort of stuck between, do I just run or do I try to take the beetle out? He chooses, honestly, kind of neither. He starts on the bug and then gives up, and neither one of those plans was really going to save him. So, TOOBASED able to strike in the top lane. That's 2 big kills going their way.
Yeah, just really well played. I also think both Yuma and Devi, the kind of Belgium duo, just underestimating how strong those bugs actually were. You saw both of them. They were like, what, -8, -12 armor, and then Benjaz just turns with his Helm of Ironwell, and this is a much less shutout Lycan than we've seen before. He got this item so quickly when usually you try to punish that early greed, especially when you counterpicked it as such the D2 Hustlers did, but that's a pretty big set of kills to give away to a man that now is just going to be able to farm towards his HOD very quickly.
Any maybe disadvantage in the lane itself gets a little counteracted, but you see Devi and Yuma, they're continuing to put this pressure on. They're not really giving up on it. They don't really have the kill potential like they attempted to have the last time around, but just because you gave up the kills doesn't mean you now have to sort of give him a free time in this lane. They are just going at him over and over again, and now with the root, actually, Benjaz maybe in some trouble. There's the slow from the whirling axes in the ranged form, and Benjaz will fall. Empyrean, he didn't step away for all that long, but it was long enough for Hustlers to make their move.
Yep, really important. They noticed that the Weaver, I think, was already at that top rune. I think it did end up securing it for Mr. Jeans, but still, you give away the kill that you probably should have given away another minute and a half ago, but inevitably, this is not a good Lycan lane. It is never going to be a good Lycan lane.
He's trying to make the most of what he's got, and, no, I mean, Domhelm's going to come out at a pretty decent time unless something very strange happens to set him back, although he did just die. So that's the exact kind of setback that could delay that Domhelm by, what, maybe another minute or two, and that could end up mattering. This could too. That neutral Centaur, not so neutral in Divine Llama's eyes as he does get stunned up by it, but Benjaz and Empyrean weren't really looking to push their way forward. That's not an initiation that they wanted, and look at Empyrean doing Weaver things now. He was sort of forced to maybe take a step back earlier on with that rotation towards the middle lane, but trying to get the Shikuchi in, he's going to throw out the Beetles as well, and now if you're Yuma, you can't fight. You have to fall back.
Yeah, you got to be so careful here. Of course, they are getting to this point where Yuma no longer cares about the bugs, just because, again, as soon as they go on him, you hit him up with the blind, you kill the bug on you, and then any kill potential is more or less gone. It's just poking. They're just trying to get as much as they can. Look at Devi, though. He's so confident to just walk in, ruin a pull, try for it at the very least, but also nice plays from Empyrean, because now Benjaz gets to take an entire wave under tower.
Yeah, these two supports really just sort of dictating the way that this lane's been going. The cores in this top lane have just kind of sat back and rolled with whatever's come their way. So, still going, honestly, I'd say okay for both. You mentioned this is not going to be a good lane for the Lycan, but considering that he's sitting on 30 last hits, so he is not going to win this lane, but he's certainly trying to just get what is possible. But now, you got to start to wonder, really for, I'd say, the TOOBASED side, when are they going to start to make the rotations? Because for D2 Hustlers, you've got an Ogre and a Mirana. Those two heroes can start maneuvering very sort of soon now, but what do you do if you're two-based? Empyrean can't really afford to leave because you see his teammates just getting jumped in on. They get the root down onto Benjaz. Yuma's going to be able to win that fight. Can Empyrean finish him off? Yes, he can. So they're at least going to be able to trade that one out, and Devi actually may die here as well. Shikuchi forward from Empyrean is going to get him close, but Devi turns around, throws out the stun, still trying to get into the tower, but those wolves, it's helping out with a little bit of damage, but it's not going to be enough. Empyrean doesn't want to chase any further. It is going to be the end of the fight, but over on the other side of the map, Monster was able to make the jump, hits level 6, gets the arena onto Pingu. And not only did that trap Pingu in, but I think it trapped Boris out, so he wasn't even able to really help his buddy as they turn that into a bit of a 2-for-1 across the map.
Very just rewards, but yeah, into the arrow.
Ooh. And if you're Boris, I think he assumed Flea had backed out of the lane, but Flea on the Mirana, he's a very sort of sneaky guy, gets into the tree line, and at that point, if you're Ursa and you think you're in a 1v1, you don't expect that that speared play is just going to come out of nowhere onto you.
Yeah, and again, it comes back to the value of the Mirana. He spent so much time doing his own thing. Monster hits level 6 at 6 minutes, and then everything just starts to fall apart. And Esk is actually rotated top to look for Benjamin. They want to kill him again before he hits level 6. Once he hits level 6, it does get pretty hard to put any more pressure on. But that's also where Esk has won his lane pretty handedly. Of course, the Ember can just start to farm, but with all these denies Esk has gotten, there's just so much kind of delaying two-base big timings, just the obnoxious heroes that D2 Hustlers have been able to get. And that's where we're going to see probably another big play once this arena is back online, but it's also just the prodding coming in from Esk.
Yeah, now that middle lane's maybe freed up for someone like Devi or Flea to maybe walk over there, soak up some experience if they really do want to sort of sit them in that lane. But Esk, well, he is actually making his way back here. So we'll be returning to the lane. I don't know really at this point if he still has any kill potential onto Mr. Jeans, but just checking back in, make sure the Ember Spirit doesn't get too much free time. That scan, it did catch Flea, so they know he's there. Or they know someone's there. I think you have to assume it's Flea at this point. But Mr. Jeans also scouting out a little bit further to the north with the Sleight of Fist. That hits Devi Llama as well. So they actually managed to scout out both of the rotating supports. And they could still make an attempt at this play, but it would certainly be difficult considering two base now know what's coming.
Yeah, just really good awareness from Mr. Jeans, sliding up to the top, saying that there can't just be a Mirana and an Invoker trying to kill me here, even though initially that was what was going to happen, and they're going for the arrow.
Tornado into arrow, into cold snap into EMP. That's a hell of a combo. Mr. Jeans, though, still able to jump away. And now you've got Empyrean coming in. He's going to throw the Beetles out there. That swarm forcing them back, but Mr. Jeans, how much further does he want to go? No, not any further than that. So they don't manage to find the kill. Devi? Okay. He's just trying to keep him here because here comes the TP from Monster. There's no Blink Dagger yet, but if he can catch up, the arena is there. Honestly, he might just go for the spear straight up with the arrow flying in. Oh my god. That... How do you even time that? The arena gets thrown down and the knockback pushed Pingu into the Mirana arrow. And then Monster finishes the kill with the spear. That's just... I don't know if that was 100% planned, but I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that it was.
Yeah, just really clean. And of course, Monster, he wants something bigger, but he takes what he can get because you look over at his quick buy and it's only 700 gold before he gets that blink, and that's where he will collapse on the mid lane. And again, what are you going to stand there in front of you? It's, again, that offlaner that isn't really capable of being that front line in the Lycan, where more often than not, if he doesn't have his ulti, he's just not a hero, and he's getting forced out of it top.
And he's got to use the shapeshift just to try and get away. He's actually... Yeah, he's turning around here. But
another
Yuma...
blind, though, soon.
Yeah. He's just waiting for it. Okay, waiting a little bit too long, but the cooldown wasn't quite there, so Benjaz does get in for the kill. He's even going to start hitting up this tower, and he knows... I've got a couple of friends coming up here. Pingu's already here, and the Weaver's making his way over, so they might try to turn this into something, especially considering Yuma, he actually just straight up TP'd away. He'll make his way bot, they'll turn this into a tier 1 trade-off, but two base were the ones that get the kill. That's going to swing it slightly in their favor.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to get Devi there, but of course, there isn't a bad option for D2 Hustlers. Yuma just gets to now encapsulate this bottom lane, and then like every single game of Dota thus far, we get to see both the 3 and the 4 rotate mid for this very simple play onto now the mid tower, in which how do two base decide to react here? Mr. Jean's already put down a defensive remnant. He's going to try to cut and pull the wave, but as long as these heroes exist here, the cart is going to start chipping away.
Yeah, it's already starting to take that damage. New creep waves coming in though for the two base side, but actually they actually managed to get down the tornado into the EMP. The arrow even hits into the spear. And that's all it takes. That little bit. If the first part of the combo hits, that's the danger of the D2 Hustlers lineup, then every subsequent part is also going to connect pretty much every time. And December, just the tiniest little slip up, and he gets taken down, and now the tower will fall as well because the creep wave died or was pulled away, but the cart managed to survive. They even actually, they hit it up with the Bloodlust there as well, so helping out that pushing power, and D2 Hustlers are jumping out to a bit of an advantage here, 2k up at the 12-minute mark.
Yeah, and it does make you think that is Invoker Mirana just that good because of Ember Spirit now because of the Activate Fire Remnant cast point change, where suddenly there's no way for you to kill this Ember Spirit ever becomes that setup just always landing no matter what. It's the small changes that really end up mattering because that's the second time where Mr. Jeans gets clipped by that combo, and unfortunately that's where Monster is now just been rotating everywhere. And he's got his Blink Dagger, so it's time for him to really get active on the map.
Just about a blind spear onto Empyrean. It did connect, but at that point, not really any follow-up, and now this ward is doing a hell of a lot of good for TOOBASED. They see about 2 or 3 heroes in that south side jungle. The question is, what do they want to do about it? They did smoke up. They're pushing their way forward, but D2 Hustlers smoked as well. Both smokes will pop pretty much simultaneously, and now who and where? Oh, does the rotation come in as Pingu gets hit up by the spear? Monster jumps in. There's going to be the arena into the spear stun. And Pingu will quickly be taken down. Empyrean gets stunned up as well to the south. And now Divine, he's actually just going to look for the TP out, but the Searing Chains, yeah. Searing Chains comes in, cancels the TP. Benjaz gets the kill with the right click, and well, they turn that into, honestly, a pretty solid trade. Support for support there. 20 more gold into TOOBASED hands, and all the while, the Ursa was able to just sort of chill out. He took Roshan a little while back, so he's got the Aegis, and he can just continue building towards this Diffusal Blade, which he really does need right now, because Boris, I mean, it's not terrible. He's sitting in 4th place, but you really do need this Ursa to be a major damage dealer.
Yeah, but he is going to be really brutal for D2 Hustlers to deal with because, again, he is part of that lineup that is just going to be running at you constantly, and how you really kite this bear is going to be the name of the game going forward, and whether or not they have those tools as of yet. I think once Flea is actually able to get a Yule Scepter, this game becomes much harder for Boris, but it's items like that that are really going to slow down Boris in situations where I think TOOBASED wants to get active just that little bit earlier. Otherwise, they definitely could very easily fall behind. But it's a good play from TOOBASED to distract D2 Hustlers because, again, they want to keep their opponents on this bottom side of the map. That way, Boris has opportunities like he took, where he gets the Roche really uncontestedly, and there's nothing that they really want to do because they're 2 base heroes presenting themselves bottom. I think that's where Mr. Jeans actually died, was when he was getting the Roche, but it's still never the worst play possible. Once he gets his BKB, though, Mr. Jeans is going to have a field day.
He's already got the Maelstrom, so with the BKB on top of it, he's going to be able to push in for these fights, and there's not going to be a whole hell of a lot that D2 Hustlers will be able to do outside of just trying to get the physical damage onto him to kill him, but certainly not going to be easy. Meanwhile, Benjaz, with that Helm of the Overlord, is going to send that Ancient Black Dragon forward for a push onto the tower. Meanwhile, his teammates looking for the wrap, and they are going to be able to get it on Monster. Monster, though, turns around. The arena into the spear. That's a very unfortunate pause coming out right in the middle of this fight, and well, let's see what we got here. Flea's already used the arrow, so he doesn't have that at his disposal right now. Devi has kind of blown through all of his abilities as well, so this might just be a retreat from the D2 Hustlers side unless they can bring in further reinforcements. They do have Esk nearby. He'd have to invoke up some new spells, whereas Yuma, I feel like Yuma's a little bit too far away in this instance, so may just be a situation where they try to pull back. The problem is, if they do pull back, they're basically surrendering that tier 1 tower.
Yeah, and it might just be cost of war at this point. It was a nice spear that is actually on Mr. Jeans right now, even though it might not look like it. I think Pingu is also going to be reaching for the Static Storm here, but it's still a situation that they don't really want to be a part of, even though Lycan doesn't have his ulti here, so they might run out of damage pretty soon.
There's the glimpse into that static, but Pingu, he's just getting hammered away up by the tower. He's actually going to fall first, and Monster's still not dead. Here comes Yuma joining the fight after all, and they've got the stun. Mr. Jeans locked down and finished off, but now Boris is going to join the fight. Esk, I don't think he actually saw him coming. He tried to throw it on the ice wall, but not enough separation, so 2 heroes dead on the D2 Hustlers side. Empyrean, though, still being chased, but here comes Benjaz coming in. They're going to look to turn this one around. Empyrean will fall, but Devi Lama gets actually taken down by the neutrals, so he does die, but he's going to not give away any gold. Flea, meanwhile, is just sort of hiding on that high ground, and he was hit by the dust, but they don't have any actual high ground vision to bring him down.
Yeah, and still very successful plays coming from them. They were able to kind of just ignore them, and really, it's unfortunate because Ask just got taken down so quickly. He had already used both of his defensive spells, meaning the Deafening Blast and the Tornado. They were already spent very early on in that fight to try and save his Mars, so he ran out of anything for himself. And again, if they can get on top of the Evoker, they win. That is the name of the game for two-based, where if they spend too many spells really early on in that initiation, especially the arena, it does become very simple for them to get on those backlines. It's unfortunate that Mr. Jeans died in the fashion that he died. He had two defensive remnants out, but I think he just got rooted up by Yuma, and then really, what can you do at that point?
Once you're sort of rooted up and stuck in it, you just got to kind of roll with those punches. But now we do see Yuma. He was able to pick up a double damage rune, so well, they kind of want to try for something here. If they can't get the kill, maybe they could try to push the lane out, but the creep wave isn't really cooperating with them, so they're just going to have to go for the kill. They get the spear stun down. They need the follow-up stun, though. The Sunstrike's even coming in. And, well, Yuma, that's a good idea, trying to get over to where he thought that sort of safety Valve Remnant would be, but, I mean, Fire Remnant move is always going to be faster than your top sort of running speed on the Troll Warlord, so I don't know. If Yuma goes with his other two teammates and just dishes out his damage on the initial stun combo, maybe they get that kill.
Yeah, it's still going to feel pretty hard for him to ever get anything like that going, but still, I think Two-Base have done a pretty satisfying job with this Aegis. Of course, did expire. Now we're looking at the next Roche, but the name of the game will become, is D2 Hustlers ready to make that trip towards the top side of the map, or are they going to get caught off guard? Of course, they are going to defend this tier 2 tower up here. It's a little bit too early. Nice glimpse onto Yuma, though. So they might look for the fight now because they know the troll is locked towards that bottom side of the map.
And at this point, they could look for the fight, but honestly, if no one else is going to push forward, the tower is a very tempting target. So they're just trying to go for that push, looking to see who comes in. And yeah, Monster eventually has to reveal himself. And now there's a choice for Two-Base because they could look for the fight, but their numbers aren't great here. They only had 3 overall, so looks like they are going to back themselves away. The tower remains standing, and D2 Hustlers, well, they kind of get away with one there. They don't really have to commit too much, and Yuma, sure, he gets glimpsed away, but he just goes right back to farming.
Yeah, he was in the part of the map that he definitely wanted to play in. The only concerning thing is this tower is very low now, so it'd be very simple for Two-Base to just come back up here, finish it off, take away the outpost, and if they do that around the Roche time, it could get very scary, but they're looking at Benjaz.
Yep, jumping in onto that Lycan. They trap up inside of the arena. His shapeshift actually does go through, so he's going to survive, and he has to buy. God, that just happens so often. Every time they go in onto Benjaz, if they do not kill him immediately, Devi is dead. Benjaz just goes for him every time because it's the easiest possible kill that he's got after the shapeshift. So, well, such is the life of a support, I suppose. But that was a big opportunity that they just kind of miss. And Benjaz, I mean, his itemization is pretty straightforward here with the Dom Helm and the Drum, but it gives him a little bit more endurance. Unfortunately, Mr. Jeans does not have that same endurance. They jump in with that spear into arrow combo, and Mr. Jeans still getting caught out here. He really needs that BKB, which he is no longer going for, ET. He is looking for the Kaya and Sanj now instead.
Yeah, it's going to be a shred of greed right there. It was just simply the Yules into arrow combo that actually worked, and they're back up top, though, trying to get the pressure here. Of course, when they went back up here before, they didn't have the Ember Spirit in the first place, so it doesn't really change all too much, but they found Empyrean.
There's that stun combo, Spear, Fire Blast, S comes in with the Meteor for the damage, and again, they defend this tower. This is twice now that D2 Hustlers have managed to sort of put together a defense, and the offensive from Simply Two-Base just kind of melts away. They're really not willing right now to go all in for that fight, and well, this may change something. The BKB may have been bailed out by the Ember Spirit, but Boris is getting pretty close to finishing one of his own. So you're going to have BKB and Enrage on your Ursa. Maybe that's the point where they feel a little bit more confident. And by the time he finishes that off as well, we're going to be looking at that Roshan respawning. It's about 2 minutes away.
Yep, everything is becoming about how prepared can we be for this next Roche fight, because again, with both Troll and Ursa in this game, it's simple for both teams to take it. The only concerning factor for me is just, again, you're playing this Troll Warlord, with an Invoker, so you are going to have that much more power compared to the Ursa, as well as if this BKB somehow gets kited out or gets popped early from Boris, because all of these stuns are instant. This is where the decision-making really becomes difficult. You don't have any saves in this game, so if you get Yules by this Mirana, are you going to pop your BKB so that way you don't get arrowed into spear into death, or do you hold it and then try to let your teammates take the fight instead? It's one of those split-second decisions that really has a massive effect on the game, and one that I think D2 Hustlers are just slightly better at getting out of their opponents, where TOOBASED, again, they're the monkey strategy. They are trying to get on top of these backline, and if they can cause chaos in the backline, the fight gets a lot easier for Boris. The problem is when everything is very direct, it very heavily favors D2.
And well, the good thing for D2 Hustlers, again, is like you said, the idea of if we can force out the BKB, then sure, they BKB, but they're in a position where they have so much lockdown that they can afford to hold maybe even just half of their sort of actual hard stun abilities, and then use the other half to sort of keep those opposing heroes at bay long enough. So it's not a situation where I can use my BKB to avoid the one combo that they have. D2 Hustlers can hit you with 3 or 4. And you mentioned they don't have any save. I think the only thing they could even think about realistically is, I guess, if the Weaver gets an axe, which he has queued up. But, I mean, this is a position 5 Weaver, needing, what, another 3,600 gold to finish that one off. And as of right now, they don't want to give him any farming priority. You still need farm on your actual core hero. So that is a theoretical save that Empyrean is working towards, but it is a long, long way off.
Yeah, it is going to be a very long time. I find it interesting that he does go for the Spirit Vessel. I understand why, just because it gives you solo kill potential. It gives you the ability to really get aggressive on the map, and it's definitely very good versus Yuma post BKB. But again, that's where this fight in a minute and a half that is definitely coming, there are a lot of factors at play here. You see already D2 Hustlers placing so much vision around that area. It's very defensive vision, but they know where this game is going to end up, and that's also where, if they can play in this mid and bot area, it's a very obnoxious factor that TOOBASED have to kind of respect. We'll probably see Mr. Jeans putting a remnant down top and then TPing around, but that's where you have to think that D2 Hustlers just have slightly better team fight. If Monster finds anyone in that arena, it's going to look a little bit grim.
Now BKB finished up by Yuma, so everything's sort of coming together for them at the right time. They've got the BKB up. What else? Flea. I mean, he's been sitting on this Yules for quite some time. It's not like he just bought it, but he's got it for the fight. You've got BKB up on your Mars as well, so those two can be your front line. Monster and Yuma can sort of push in. Esk is going to be free to sort of sit in the back and sort of throw out those spells as needed. But they want to go for the fight first. This is going to be a 4-man smoke, and
See Boris.
yep, this would be a huge kill if they could get it. They need eyes on that Ursa, though. They don't actually catch him, but they do get the Lycan. Well, they see the Lycan. Can they actually catch up to him? That's going to be the question. Shape Tips is coming out, but that sets up the arrow into the spear. Sunstrike was coming in as well, but that damage not going to be needed. Benjaz gets picked off, and well, maybe Boris would have been a little bit more valuable, but taking down the Lycan still sort of shatters any sort of team fight that TOOBASED could have been looking for, and actually has no buyback here. So by the time Roche is back up, he's still going to be down for about 20 seconds. But they actually bought the Ancient Black Dragon first. It's a nice bit of gold, though. They can pick it up. Yeah, 250 over to Yuma. So definitely worth the effort, and now they can just sort of waltz their way into that pit, and if you're TOOBASED, you have a decision to make here.
This is so hard. The
Those are
bugs.
in.
Yeah,
They do
soar
have
through,
Static
but
Storm as well if Pingu can get close, but you look at the vision. They actually put this is a massive ward here, right up on the high ground in the west side jungle. No one can sneak their way over unless they're smoked, and well, Mr. Jeans was not smoked. He walks in, so they do see him coming, and Yuma, he's got the clear now to go after Roshan. They will finally take that ward down, but it may have already done its job. Roshan's down to about half HP. They're trying their best to get in there and try to finish it off quickly. But it looks like there will be a response, or maybe not. Boris gets hit up by the Yules. The arrow actually not used onto the Ursa. They'll use it onto the Black Dragon instead. And they do manage to get the Aegis into their hands. Now the fight breaks out. Yuma going to pop the BKB, looking for the Battle Trance as well. Jumping in onto Boris. Needs a bash here, but not really going to get it with the BKB up on the Ursa. He's going to now turn around, look for the fight, and they do bring him down once. But Boris still has to retreat. If he has to go a second round against Yuma, it's not really going to go his way. But look at that. Monster blinking forward, getting off the spear stun. Boris is not able to get himself out of here just yet. He is fighting up quite well against that Mars, though, and Well, he very nearly won that fight, but the Yule Scepter throws him up in the air, and they do bring him down. But while all of that was happening, the rest of TOOBASED basically focused exclusively on Yuma. They got his second life, they take him down, so overall, you lose your Ursa, you lose Empyrean, who had to buy back, but you get the Troll Warlord twice, you take down an Ogre, and that's honestly really the best case scenario outside of... Oh, hold up. Outside of stealing Roche is what I was going to say, but the Shard got left in the pit.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird. I think they were definitely rushing to do everything at once. Can't imagine Benjaz is going to take the shard. Probably not good, but it probably going to give it over to either the Ember Spirit or the Disruptor. That'd probably feel very nice. Even the Ursa would probably be happy. You never want to buy that shard on your own. They're just very far from each other. But at the same time, Yuma popped everything on his first life there. I think using both the BKB and the Battle Trance is what kind of set him up for failure, but TOOBASED were also so quick on that jump whenever they knew that the Troll was theoretically out of spells. He was out of gas, and with all of that focus on Boris, Boris did not die easily. They didn't have that arrow for a good 5 or 6 seconds, so they had to kite the fight out even further. And of course, you don't lose Monster or Flea, but you definitely get two split up there, and that's exactly what TOOBASED want. They want to split you up, they want to get into your backlines, and then they want to tear you apart. And without a BKB or a Blink Dagger or anything like that, it's very hard for Esk to maneuver once these fights get a little bit chaotic. Cool.
They're going to push in onto Empyrean. They don't quite get the lockdown onto him, but now they've spotted out Pingu. He does get the glimpse off, so that forces Yuma away, but yeah, Flea and Monster are still coming in. Yule sets up the arrow. The spear, honestly, yeah, it's just going to be free. Didn't know if they really needed it, but they're going to go for the easy kill, and Pingu does get taken down. So they do find that pick, and while they were doing that, that's a big pickup for Esk over on the other side. He's got himself the Orchid, so we really have been talking about this Invoker to this point in the game, ET, in a supplementary role, I would say. Wasn't really the showstopper in his own right, but now with that silence, he can afford to maybe get a little bit more aggressive, maybe even try to find a solo pick onto some of those supports if he is sort of roaming around under the cover of the Invis.
Yeah, definitely, as well as just able to find, I think, this Weaver. I think he buys it because he knows that Empyrean's been playing by himself in these side lanes, and while his teammates have been trying to make those attempts, it definitely is, I think, very difficult. But this is an opportunity. If TOOBASED do find him again, he has no defensive capabilities, so he would more or less die in the chaos. I think that's where we might see a blink coming next from him. He needs something to really reposition himself, because otherwise he is just an Alacrity man, and it isn't bad to be an Alacrity man, but yeah, big fight.
Mr. Jean's jumping past the front line. They're going to throw a Static Storm down here as well. Monster, that's way too late on the arena into the Spear Stun. Everyone had their BKBs active, so Dubai gets taken down. Yuma, though, activating a BKB of his own. They're going to try to jump quickly onto Empyrean. They get him up with the silence into the stun, so they do take him down. Trade off on those two supports, and the Ogre, he actually bought back. So Dubai's back into the fight. They try to go in onto the Invoker, but now with those BKBs no longer available, they're getting hit up by all of that control. Esk will still fall, though, as Mr. Jeans gets onto the backline, but Boris will be isolated, finished off. Now they've got the Yules onto the Lycan, as Benjaz is going to be slowly but surely killed off by Flea. And they just get baited into round 2 there. The only reason I think that first fight goes so well for them is that they had the BKBs to avoid that lockdown. Without it, they're still just not quite strong enough.
Yep, they pump both their BKBs, they run through the arena. Monster feels pretty bad for a second. He's constantly running away with the Bulwark active while a BKB of his own is spent, but very importantly there, Yuma held his for so long. He stood in that Static Storm for a good 2 to 3 seconds, walked in it, walked out of it, and then he immediately gets to rego once they overextend just a little bit too far. Of course, they dove in deep and they got the S kill, but problem being is now you have a very angry Troll that's going to get your glyph. They still need to be very careful, especially with BKB coming up in 7, so that glimpse is actually a pretty big threat here, and a lot of damage on Yuma, so 5 seconds.
Mr. Jeans went all in for it. They've got the kill, and now it's a full-on retreat. We've got to get the hell out of here. Boris is pushing his way forward, and
That's insane.
oh man,
What the?
I don't really know there.
He missed all 3. He missed on all 3 hits because a Moonlight Shadow gives 20 evasion. That's crazy. That was unlikely. Whatever. Like, what is that?
Well, you know, sometimes RNG just kind of gives you the middle finger, so to speak, right? But I'm not sure really that Yuma should have been sticking around on that low HP. That was so risky. He was trying to sort of wait things out for his own BKB to come back up, but the downside of that play is that you lose your own life and your teammates immediately have to retreat onto your own side of the map, and the benefits of sticking around there were not great. You weren't getting the tier 3 tower, you weren't really setting up for any other kills, so it just felt like a risk with not much of a reward attached to it, with good on Simply TOOBASED to push in when they recognize the opportunity.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's very easy for them to execute, and really, it's the greediness from Yuma there. He wants to hit the tower, but you already got the glyph. The damage is great and all, but I think really just got a little bit too far ahead of himself without having BKB. Of course, it is not the end of the world. It is just one death in what can be a very long game, and you can't really lose focus just because of it, but still, it's more space and more time that you are now going to allow heroes like Boris to get even more dangerous. If he gets a basher, then it's going to feel so scary for Esk specifically, because again, if he gets drawn on by this Ursa, there's really nothing you can do except for using him up, trying to push him away, deafening blast, tornado. It's the running versus the chasing. Whichever team does it better is just the team that is probably going to win. And finally, looks like they're going to get this tier 2 tower top, but this is really good for DT Hustlers. They know they don't have glyph. TOOBASED are not reacting appropriately right now. They got to come back.
Yeah, we do see Mr. Jeans TPing in. They need a little bit more, though. Empyrean's making his way over as well. Benjaz is now TP'd back in, but the tier 3 tower... Go, one more. There we go. Yuma's able to bring that down. So there is a response. It's just not very fast. Meanwhile, this is actually kind of interesting. This is an item that makes sense, but I'm not really sure I was expecting this hero to get it. There's a Crimson Guard up on the Mirana, so if Boris or Benjaz do try to push in, their damage is going to get reduced, and well, now we'll see if that matters. Boris is going to push his way forward. BKB active, trying to get onto Esk, looking for that exact kill you were talking about. Hasn't been able to pick it up just yet. The Invoker's just barely getting away. The Spear now comes in. Deafening Blast going to be thrown out as well, but Esk will still fall. But in the fight itself, look at Yuma going to work with the Battle Trance, looking for any kill he can get. He gets the root down onto Empyrean, and with the cleave, he'll take both Empyrean and Boris down. Boris immediately buying back. This is getting into sort of dangerous territory. They have to be able to hold the line. They will take down Yuma and Devi. I think they've got it now. Monster's blinking himself away. Esk, though, bought back, and... I mean, at the time he bought back, it made a little bit of sense, but by the time he actually gets to his teammates, the engagement's pretty much over, and TOOBASED managed to hold. It would have been nice if they could have done that before the tier 3 tower fell, but at least they get the team fight.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Boris, he bought back even though all of those kills just went down from Mr. Jeans, so it feels like his buyback really wasn't able to get anything accomplished, but he did his job. He ran down Esk. He had to pop his BKB very early, which is why he kind of ends up dying to that Troll Warlord. As soon as you get captured with, 15 stacks of fervor running at you, then you can't really do all too much. But at the same time, that was another successful hold, and Benjaz is really the one who's picking up speed. He's the kind of lone survivor along with Mr. Jeans, and the longer this game is going to go on, the more we're going to see Mr. Jeans kind of start to carry his team, because again, it is the who is chasing who, and even more fortunately for them, with 10 seconds on the Troll and no outpost to their name, this little bit of infrastructure they were able to establish before they all were forced to TP bottom is going to get them the Roche, and the third Roche. So now we've got a Refresher Shard, killer item on the Ember Spirit. We're going to see a lot of remnants coming out, and Aghanim Scepter is already being built up by him.
Yeah, if he can get the Ags before he has to use that Refresher Shard, it's just going to be absolutely brutal for D2 Hustlers to deal with. So a bit of a change on the wins here. Simply TOOBASED, feeling a little bit more confident. They're going to have to string together some more teamfight wins, but you go from a situation where we were wondering where their response was going to be with that high ground push to them now winning the fight, having Aegis and Shees and Refresher Shard, and continuing to build up items on these other core heroes. Now they're going to look for the fight. Full 5-man smoke. And for now, it looks like they're moving towards their opponent's side of the map. Unfortunately for them, that's kind of the wrong direction. Going more southeast is where the majority of the D2 Hustlers lineup is, so we'll see them sort of adjust course here. Actually, still kind of going the wrong way. They're moving towards an illusion of flee. They're pinging it out, but they should know now. They're not popping.
Yeah, they're just going to clear it out. They needed to fix bottom in the first place. That's why maybe they should have waited on the smoke a little bit. They're going to pop another one. I hope that illusion didn't just scout it out, even though Pingu does give up on it. But that's why D2 Hustlers scan their high ground right there. They are terrified of then getting punished by a team that could be very well moving through their jungle area. Unfortunately, TOOBASED give up on their own play even before their opponents think they've given up on it. But this is going to be, again, time. that TOOBASED, they don't desperately need, but it is luxury time. Once Mr. Jeans gets this eggs and he is buying out for it, he's not playing with his buyback at all, you are going to see this Invoker need this BKB, and that's where Esk is getting the time allowed to him, so he will be able to finish it off. But even then, we're also getting a really low BKB on Yuma. It's only 6 seconds, so who gets whose BKB is the real name of the game at this point, and I think that's where we're seeing the game really heavily slowed down, because both teams, they know the stakes. As soon as they lose these core heroes, if you're TOOBASED, then you're probably going to get megas, and if you're D2 Hustlers, then you're going to very slowly but painfully lose a lot of your buildings, because Ursa's not the best at hitting buildings, in all honesty, but the Lycan definitely helps him out a little bit there.
Like this play from Divide, though, getting his shard up, so that Fire Shield against a lineup that's sort of very right-click heavy. All right, if you can absorb 85% of the first 3 hits in from an Ursa or a Lycan, I mean, Ursa can get through those 3 pretty quickly. The thing is, that might just be enough to allow D2 Hustlers to mount a response, to get Monster in for something like an Arena, and then it all comes back again to the BKB timings, as you mentioned. If you don't get your first 3 hits doing any damage, maybe you feel more pressure to then pop your BKB in case you get jumped in on an exchange. So, well, low-cost item for Divide, but it could have a pretty sizable impact here, and we'll see. Looks like there's a fight about to break down. They go in on to the Ember Spirit first. They need to be able to finish him off, and they don't get it. That friendly time-lapse will be there, but they did actually hit up Boris, able to pin him to the wall, but the Arena is not going to really protect against a Static Storm, and okay, that Static Storm really did not matter. Yuma life steals through it, Monster pops the BKB, so didn't really do a whole lot there. Yuma, though, did get glimpsed back into the fight, and he is completely isolated. They thought he was going to be able to get out safely, so they were backing themselves away. Now they need to get back in, but Yuma, he's not dead yet. Look at all that damn lifesteal. He is not going down. They need to be able to kill him. They will finally do so, but now they have problems. The arrow connects. Boris will be taken down. Mr. Jeans, he's trying to hold off on using the cheese, but you do see him pushing it into his inventory just in case. I think he's going to be able to get away. Monster misses with the spear. The cheese, though, did have to be eaten. And Monster and Flea are still going. Do they have the wraparound? Esk is coming in. And, well, what's left? He doesn't have any remnants to work with, so honestly the answer is nothing. He just can't get away. And they will take the fight. They do have to sacrifice Yuma in that, but definitely worthwhile. Teamfight recap actually doesn't quite catch all of those deaths, but take my word for it. D2 Hustlers sort of the victors in that fight.
Yeah, and it's really unfortunate for Boris there. The fervor stacks just persist, so even though it's a great glimpse back, you suddenly have 15 stacks on you, and then you're just getting killed by this troll who really did not want to die. I think Mr. Jeans was really hesitant to use all of his remnants there. The refresher shard came out a little bit late as well, so that kill not being as clean as it really needed to be just means that everyone else is under no threat. You look at their HP after the fight, they couldn't get onto the Invoker. This is the one time that TOOBASED really wanted to gamble by starting onto Yuma, and even though it was an incredible early BKB, it just ended up not mattering. He just would not die, and they had to trade absolutely everything for that. And when you use all your remnants like that, you didn't have BKB either on Mr. Jeans, it's so hard for you to not get cleaned up by these heroes that, again, they just don't seem to die on the D2 Hustler side. And that's where lacking a lot of this lockdown just naturally, TOOBASED are going to be forced into a more defensive position, and that's where the game gets very, very hard for them.
Yeah, and it's just, I mean, you look at the itemization. I was just talking about the Fire Shield from the Ogre. That sort of has an impact. Monster picked up both a Vlad's and an AC, so they're a little bit tankier from that. Flea has that aforementioned Crimson Guard, so all of those little things sort of stack up to the point where these heroes, they're not invincible by any means, but it's just that little bit of extra effort that simply TOOBASED, in some instances, they have, right? As you mentioned, if the Ember had just gone all in with all of his remnants, maybe they get that kill, but you're not expecting to need that last little bit to push it over the top. So in maybe 1 or 2 seconds of hesitation because you didn't think you needed that extra damage, all of a sudden a Satanic gets popped, the BKB gets popped, and the fight just kind of turns on you.
Yeah, and that's where also the evasion is really becoming obnoxious for Boris. Boris, after BKB, can't hit this troll. He simply cannot. The blind is just way too effective, and that slight misses. Some Fury gets clipped.
They're in onto Mr. Jeans. He pops the BKB, though. Now Boris is actually dishing out the damage. They want Flea first, but the Dual Scepter is going to keep the Murano alive. But the fight continuing inside of the pit. Yuma, BKB active, looking for a target, trying to get onto somebody, but he's actually get disarmed by the halberd, so he can't do any damage while Devi will be taken down. This fight is just so broken up. Everybody is kind of scrambling at this stage, and Yuma's actually just straight up stuck. He is holding that ult for quite some time, though, but now he'll get it. He knows he's got Boris, but actually he doesn't because Empyrean comes in, hits him up with a friendly time lapse, but Pingu is going to be left behind. He'll be taken down. Benja's now in trouble as well as the root comes in. Slow will be applied, though, from Monster, but they just don't have that lockdown. Arrow flies through, doesn't hit onto anyone, and the fight will reset. Couple of buybacks being used on the supports from each side, but get a Disruptor back in who doesn't have his Static Storm for 30, so he can still make some plays with the glimpse, but you won't have that big team fight ult.
Yeah, and again, it's the problem that Boris post BKB cannot do anything. This troll is just standing in front, being super obnoxious. He thought he had him there as well. Yuma, as soon as he got that initial bash onto the wolf-bitten Boris, it really looked like he was going to die, but that's where the time-lapse comes in clutch. But unfortunately, 30 seconds, and then maybe you look for another play on TOOBASED, but the smoke seems just a little bit desperate from them, because I don't really know what they're doing here. If they go towards that room, then they're going to scout out of DD, and that could be big. But unfortunately for them, there's no good way to get back onto the high ground here that D2 Hustlers have claimed, and they have no real reason to give up. They're going to stay here as long as they can, and they will stumble upon the DD. So it's something, but they really need to be careful with this next fight. Everyone has BKBs again now, so it's not like this is going to be easy.
Hitting him up with the Searing Chains. There's going to be the Shapeshift out from, or excuse me, the Wolf Bite onto Boris, but he doesn't have a clean angle. And they go in. As of right now, no. Okay, there's the blink. He gets onto the back line. Devi tries to stun him up. He does connect, but now Yuma needs to get into the fight. The Abyssal Blade stun is going to come through. The Ursa's locked down. Monster trying to get onto him as well, but the Wolf Bite move speed is going to allow him to try to get away, but the Eul Scepter now comes in. That's going to force out the BKB. And Boris, just look at him run. He's just trying to get away, but now D2 Hustlers are going to really just go onto other targets. Pingu dropped low. He won't be taken down just yet as he was able to glimpse that Troll Warlord away from him. But they're still hunting. I think they're going to be able to get that kill. Yeah, Pingu will be taken down, but what else can they get? Trying to jump in onto Mr. Jeans, but he was able to jump away with his own remnant. So really, it's a trade-off of the supports, and as a matter of fact, it's the two supports who died last time around and used their buybacks. So both the Ogre and the Disruptor are going to be out of here for a little while, but other than that, casualty count was acceptable, I suppose, for the two teams, but a lot of resources getting committed there. I don't think we'll see them go back in for a fight anytime soon, which means Hustlers have a free path into the Roche pit.
Yep, and unfortunately, it's 4th Roche. This is everything. This is your pocket Ags. This is your pocket Refresher, and this Refresher, if it gets put onto Yuma, there's no good way for him to die anymore. We'll see who actually ends up getting the Ags. Could be the Invoker, could be the Troll. The Troll would be very obnoxious just because, again, you have that self-dispel, so it's even more difficult. But Boris, he doesn't BKB for 5.
Uh-oh. They got the silence
He's got
onto him.
BKB TP soon, but okay, should be fine.
Can't keep that chase going. Meanwhile, the Aghanim's Blessing was eaten by the Troll, so he does have himself the upgrade to the Axes. Tried to get in onto the Ember, not going to be able to do so, but Empyrean's in a little bit of trouble as well. He uses the time-lapse to try and get out, but he's going to get dusted by Flea. There's going to be the Euls into the arrow setup, and Empyrean, he is not getting away from that one. Flea tracks him down, but if you have to sacrifice Empyrean to get the rest of the lineup out of there, you are more than happy to do so. As TOOBASED, they lose, but they live to fight another day.
Yeah, and you see Boris, he's desperately trying to get this MKB. Once he has it, then he can actually stick on these heroes, but it's just been so obnoxious thus far, and that's where you also see Overwhelming Blink picked up on Monster. He is going to be, again, killer. Once these BKBs are gone, there's nothing that you can do. It's so obnoxious as well with the Ember Spirit. It's just going to slow everything down in that burst coming out from you. You don't have it. You are very far away from your Refresher, so you're not going to see that 10 Remnant kill. And that's where these objectives, I mean, everything is just falling apart right now, and Boris isn't even able to finish off his last item here. They're just a little bit too fast. And Alacrity, that's a 450 damage troll.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about in the draft. It's finally come to pass. The Bloodlust into the Alacrity is just too strong, and now Pingu, he's going to get jumped in on. He tries to drop his own Static Storm to defend himself, but it's not going to work. He's taken down, dead for 50 seconds. Flea, though, he may be sacrificed here, and well, they do manage to find that kill. The problem is their BKBs have now come to an end, so I'm not really sure they want to keep on going. That Deafening Blast was able to disarm Mr. Jeans, but he still pushes his way forward. That's going to allow them to take down another of the supports as Divine Llama will fall, but they still need to deal with Yuma on the backline. For now, though, it looks like the plan is really to just ignore him. They're pushing their way forward, trying to get onto Esk, but Mr. Jeans, where'd all his backup go? Everyone else is further to the south, looking for the fight onto Monster, so Mr. Jeans will fall, and Monster, he just eats the cheese. He's still standing. They can't bring him down. Yuma now rejoining the fight, and Boris, I don't really know if you can get out, but he doesn't have much of a choice. He just has to stand his ground here. He's going to get rooted up, stunned. He did manage to get time-lapse, though, by Empyrean, so he is still in the fight. And Mr. Jeans, he actually bought back, goes right back in onto his Remnant. He'll take down Monster and Esk, and it looks like they have finally managed to swing this fight in their favor. Yuma is really by himself. Can they really do this, though? This is a scary Troll Warlord who has 2 lives to work with, so maybe you kind of just leave him alone. Monster is coming back in, though, so this could get dicey if they want to go for the fight.
Yeah, there's no way. D2 Hustlers just walk away, but you are right. They literally cannot kill Yuma in this situation. They're still waiting, and that's an incredible buyback from Mr. Jeans to actually be the one to take down Esk, and that was what they needed to do. They separated the Troll from the Ursa. I think TOOBASED very stubbornly kept on trying to force that engagement, and what the Mars had, I think, 25, 30 stacks of Furious Wipes on him whenever that fight did kind of come to an end. But they found the Mirana, they found the early BKB from the Invoker, and then, very importantly, they had the gem on the Ember Spirit to find the vision to actually take down Esk, which is huge. The only problem is, you did take that after losing both of your racks, so what happens when the fight gets to your base? They gotta look for something scrappy and something now. I love what they're doing here. If they find Flea, that'd be the first, but they're gotta cut in behind their opponents right now.
Flea going to try to leap away, but the Searing Chains comes in. He removes it with the Lotus Orb, pops his own ult, and trying to get away, but Boris going to be able to track him down. But now, Monster and Yuma, do they look for the reinitiation? Yes, they do. They go in with the Arena. Time-lapse used onto Empyrean himself, which means Yuma's free to go in onto any target he wants. He's going to try to get Benjaz. Refresher out from Monster, allowing for a second Arena, as they do bring the Weaver down. Now they're backing onto the Lycan, stunning him up with the Abyssal Blade, looking for the extra damage that they need. They will take him down, but Boris wants to turn around, looking for the fight, but he's getting rooted up. Batch as well, dropping low. Can he fight his way through this? He's trying to get Monster first. He will be able to finish that fight, but Yuma is still pushing forward, although a nice play from Pingu there, in with a kinetic field, so Yuma can't actually chase, but this is still that same 2-life Troll Warlord that they had to walk away from before. This time, however, he doesn't have any backup. Monster was the only hero with him the last time around, and Monster's been finished off, so it would have been a maybe slightly more favorable situation this time around, but they still don't want to take the risk, especially with Boris low on HP and mana. Oh,
yeah,
Esk?
And unfortunately, yeah, Pingu got caught here.
TP's in. He's got that Radial Deafening Blast now at level 25, so he's able to just hit absolutely everyone, and Pingu goes down. 60 seconds. Buyback is still on cooldown for about a minute. He's actually about 500 gold short as well, so this could be an opening. D2 Hustlers are eyeing up that final lane of racks, but look at Empyrean. Just sitting back here. No sort of vision on this area for D2 Hustlers, so they don't know he's there, but what can he do if he does make his move? You see him now, actually, he's really just trying to get back over with his teammates, but the Aegis, it just timed out. Yuma, he's still going for it, but he actually gets completely bypassed. They're looking for Esk on the back line. Can they actually get him? Mr. Jeans, they don't have the vision. They're not going to be able to make that play happen. Meanwhile, in the base, Yuma holding his ground. He's going to activate the Battle Trance. And they've got the disarm. They hit him up with that halberd. That's a nice play now, and look at them turn around. Yuma's just getting absolutely annihilated with no Satanic and no ult. There was nothing for him to do there, and that was just so perfectly played by TOOBASED. They just wait him out, they wait until that ult ends, and then they make their move, and they do have a little bit of a problem here inside of their base with the tier 4s under attack, but they should be able to clean it up.
Yeah, but very importantly, they run him back. They run him all the way over towards the tier 4s, and with there being no Mars alive, they definitely go for a really risky play on T2 Hustlers, because, of course, there was no way for Esk to connect. That's where he still doesn't have any repositioning tools, so it is just him walking in and casting his spells. And do they try this for Mr. Jeans?
Oh, they want it. They're going to go for it. Tornado is there. They managed to get down the silence as well as the arrow, and Mr. Jeans, BKB comes out. He is going to be able to jump away with that.
The Sunstrike. Okay, he's out of range. He's good.
Not a bad guess with the Sunstrike there, as it's just on the steps, but Mr. Jeans was already back in the fountain. He's going to be just fine. So, Esk, you might as well try, right? Just in case. Maybe you do hit that, but now there's a bit of a problem. While that distraction was coming out from the Ember, you see Boris and Pingu, they sort of wrap their way around, and they do see Monster. He's able to blink out, but Tabai, well, he's not going to be quite as fortunate. He is now trapped up inside of the kinetic field, and he'll be taken down by the army from Benjaz. So they find the Ogre. That's a hero who does have buyback, though. So if they need him back on the front line, they are going to be able to get him in. And, well, at this point, I think they're very much okay with letting the tier 2 tower go. It's just a question of TOOBASED pushing for more. Do they go for the high ground right now? They should know that Esk and Flea are sort of out of position. Although, maybe they don't actually see Flea. He's far enough back where I don't think they have that vision.
Yeah, I think he is going to be fine here, but Still, you see the lines getting drawn by Boris. He knows that they need to cut in, they need to somehow get this bottom outpost back, and then they can start to get a better grasp of where their opponents are playing. And if they are able to find S cannot show his face whenever he doesn't have BKB. So if they get forced out early, especially in a brief skirmish here where they're trying to put some split push pressure, they're trying for the same play Mr. Jeans, but I don't think they know that they're getting collapsed upon right now.
They are going to get a little bit of an inkling there, so they will try to make their escape, but the Invoker gets hit up. He's going to try for the BKB, but Boris, yeah, he's not letting that happen. The bash comes in. And, well, that's a play D2 Hustlers at this stage kind of can't afford, but at least Esk has his buyback available, but that's giving over a little bit of momentum, because now without that Invoker, D2 Hustlers take a step back, and simply TOOBASED can try to push forward as they're now operating on their opponent's side of the map.
And here he comes. Wolfbit Boris.
Wants it to buy. Okay, good glimmer, actually, but he is still going to get stunned up. He's pushed back by the spear, though, but that's still not going to matter. Devi will still fall, and more confident now from that Simply 2 base side as they continue to push in, looking for these exact kind of pickoffs.
And full Abyssal Blade now on Boris, and that's where everything is really going to come down to Flea and his ability to find the Lotus Orbs. It really feels like they are now gaining a really good grip of this game. They've very slowly but surely gotten control. Really, everything was just because of that Yuma death top. Yuma's been afraid to get out onto the base again. Of course, his buyback is very expensive, so he's sitting here with gold to try and get this Swift Blink, but I think really him getting his Swift Blink as late as he has, it's really been the one factor that makes it very difficult for him to get in and out of these fights. Of course, before it was working because Boris simply didn't have any lifesteal, so you couldn't really win that fight no matter what if you were the Ursa, but with this MKB purchase, really that was the big turning point in this game, and everything is going to pretty much level out whenever this next Roche begins, because you have to go back there if you're D2 Hustlers, and you need to get control on the map again.
Yeah, they need to try and reestablish that control. They're still leading in terms of the net worth, but, I mean, that's not really doing them a whole lot of good right now. Meanwhile, Empyrean, well, just continuing to sort of step into that medic role with the Aether Lens. He can now get that friendly time-lapse off from much further away, so his job is just going to kind of be to sit there. Sit on the back line, wait and see if a core gets in trouble, and then just bail him out with that time-lapse. And if you're D2 Hustlers, well, what do you do? Because if you're looking for the Weaver, trying to catch him out specifically, okay, well, it might be a little bit easy if Empyrean just sort of walks in like this. He was trying to recover that gem, and technically he did so, but then he immediately dies the second time. Now Mr. Jeans, he's in a little bit of trouble as well. He's going to get stunned up, but Boris tries to go on the backline, immediately taking down S, so they will find that first kill. Static Storm now going to be deployed on the 2. Tavai Llama finished off. Yuma, though, BKB active. He's looking for Ursa. They need to get onto Boris, but he's still walking away. They can't keep him locked down, so Boris is just really able to walk out of this fight, and will we see a second round? Benjaz was in a little bit of trouble, but he is going to be able to pop that BKB and walk away. So Hustlers, well, do they chase? They did just use a buyback on their Ogre. Esk actually popped his as well, and now they're looking for the arrows. None of them connect, but they still catch up to Pingu. So they're at least going to be able to take him down. There is a buyback up on that Disruptor. It's going to be used now. Meanwhile, Esk pushing forward. They know Benjaz is there. They're going to be able to spot him out now. They hit him up with multiple stuns here, really. Mr. Jeans tries to turn around for the Sleight of Fist, but it's not really going to be enough. And actually, he got clipped by an arrow. He's going to get hit up by the Hex as well. Can they lock him down? Force Staff not enough from Pingu. Mr. Jeans will fall, and now the Ursa, he tried to jump in, but he's hit by the Deafening Blast. Going to get disarmed, going to get stunned. They need to be able to keep him alive, but there's no one here to help him. The only hero is the Disruptor, and now he's getting jumped in on, as well as Pingu will fall. And TOOBASED, that fight in and of itself may have just cost them the game. There's a buyback in from Boris. There's one more available on the Ember, but I don't know if the two of them can really hold the line now.
They just ran out of cutting potential with the arrow.
Duels into arrow, into spear, stun. This Ursa just cannot fight. He's taken down again, and that's going to be the GG called. D2 Hustlers. I mean, that was the fight to end all fights. That's exactly what they needed. And, well, pretty much the perfect time to take a fight like that, really, as D2 Hustlers will just sort of snatch that one away from their opponents. It looked for quite some time like TOOBASED were sort of starting to take control, but not going to be the case. They can't quite handle the last team fight, and they do end up dropping it.
Yeah, and it really feels like D2 Hustlers had no business pushing up onto that high ground, but Unfortunately, it's not to point fingers, but Empyrean just gets greedy with the gem. He walks just underneath Vision. He gets immediately blown up. They don't have that time lapse. They don't have that tool to force out BKBs. And D2 Hustlers, very importantly, got everything out of 2-base so early on. And unfortunately for them, just having a few more buybacks and being early and up in the exchange just meant that they got to take the fight on 2-base's side of the map, pushed into the racks, and then they kind of just fell apart with their buyback usage. It's already really rough to buy back on Ember Spirit when you don't have items like the Refresher, so you don't have any remnants coming into the next fight, and unfortunately, they just can't do anything once they get to that stage of the game. They look so good for so long, they've really clawed it back, but at the end of the day, all it took was really one arrow, one Yules, one Mars combo, and then the game did fall apart. 2-base did such a good job up until that point, stalling it out, though.
Mm-hmm. It's very much a commendable effort on their part to sort of draw it out that long, and in a couple of instances even push onto their opponent's side. But D2 Hustlers, at the end of the day, they just seemed to have the superior team fight. They had more longevity and they had more control compared to their opponents. So that is able to see them through as D2 Hustlers take the win here in game number 1. It was, well, I think one of, if not the sort of longest game we've had in Pro Series so far. So Hustlers are able to sort of flex their endurance a little bit here at 2-base expense. So now, after a game that sort of goes a little bit longer in that regard, always interesting to see whether one or both of the teams maybe tries to pick up the pace and the tempo a little bit moving into that second match. So we'll see if those adjustments get made or if we see something more similar to what we had here in game 1. But the game 2 draft is going to be coming up in about 10 minutes here. So we will be stepping away. Game 2 of Simply 2-Base versus D2 Hustlers coming up in a little bit.